like to know your point of view.
Hi everybody, welcome to Evening TV. I'm Evening Ransom. Have any of you seen this show on Showtime with Jim Carrey called Kidding? If you haven't seen it, tune in. I think you can get the first episode for free. It's a very, very fascinating show. It's about like a Mr. Rogers kind of character who is just he's all about joy and happiness and love and kindness and all this stuff. And that character is played by Jim Carrey, who his name is his stage name is Mr. Pickles, but his real name is something like Jeff Picarillo or something like that. And it's been a family-run affair for years. He came out as Mr. Pickles like in his 20s, you get the sense. But his sister, who's Catherine Keener, she's a puppet maker, and then the father is like the producer of the whole thing. The father is absolutely the most narcissistic character, and he is so destructive to his kids. The kind of narcissist that he is very familiar to me. Very, very familiar to me. One of the big things that he's big on is basically telling his kids who they are. So the daughter says that she wants to have a character, one of her puppets, and do the voice and play a character. And he's basically, no, you're not a creative person. You are a nuts and bolts. You're behind the scenes. You're a person who should just make things and be quiet. And Jeff, he's the one who should be out on the stage and out in front of people. And so he's basically defined who everybody is from when they were kids, and then it's rigid and they have to stay in these roles. And the mother, you kind of wonder where the mother is, and she's basically run off at some point. So the kids, Catherine Keener is Catherine's the older of the two siblings, and she has a daughter. And then the interesting thing is, right before the first episode, right before the show starts, Jim Carrey had twin boys, and one of them was killed. So this is not a subject that very often gets covered in shows and TV programs. But the way that he is not allowed to talk about it, the way that his father just cannot handle him talking about anything to do with it, familiar, just so utterly familiar to me.
It's the part of you that no one can see. But you know it's there, and I do too. That's the part of you that no one can take away. Because that's the part of you that's really you.
You are not a real person. You are a man in a box. You're a trusted brand. No one sees a man.
Please help me welcome Mr. Jeff Pickles!
A fascinating show about pain, pain, suffering, families, how we hide from one another, the distance in families, and also about fame and about getting a name for yourself. Because the Pickles guy is really wealthy, and he's keeping the whole family afloat. The whole family is has their livelihood based in Mr. Pickles' character. All that and really, what's the point of it? What's the point of fame? What's the point of trying to get numbers next to your name and trying to get a certain amount of following of people? What if you had millions of people that were subscribing to your channel? What would you say to them? What would you do with that platform? What would be the message that you would want to pass along? Because here's the thing: is I think that we each have a responsibility for making the world a better place. And if you are out there creating an audience where you get a certain amount of people that are listening to you, you really have a responsibility to those people, and to not be passing along more poison, not be passing around something that's making the world sicker. Instead, do something with your platform to make the world a better place. Do something to make a difference. Positive difference. The best kind of fame, of course, is just what comes along with. You compare something like what's recently happened with this guy Jordan Peterson, who's become just really, really famous on YouTube. He's a psychology professor who started posting his classes up on YouTube, and lo and behold, people started really watching his lectures, and which I think speaks really well of the young people today. I mean, it was really encouraging to me that that of all the things to watch, this is what, and his audience is 90%. His audience is 90% like young men, like say my son would be his target audience, and these young guys were finding his channel, and really it was really, really appealing to them. And what he talks about is responsibility. He talks about responsibility. He talks about how the world is suffering. The world is a difficult place. Yet that what we're really supposed to do is face that difficulty, rise above that difficulty, and do our best to alleviate some of the pain. I can tell you this, I can tell you that message right there would be a big relief to my son, because his life is painful. His life has been very, very painful. And to hear that that's okay, to hear that that's normal, his life may be more difficult than most. He may have had a lot more loss than most at his age, but ultimately it isn't easy. Life isn't easy for anybody. And all the major faiths believe, to some degree life is suffering. That's the Buddhists believe it just plain as that, and Christians and Jews also believe some version of that message, that life is suffering. And so if we can accept that, it gets a lot when your life is really hard and you're going through things and it's painful. It's less a kick in the teeth, it's less a slap in the face. It's like, this is what life is, and the whole idea, the whole point of it is to keep going anyway, to rise above anyway, to find some peace, find a way to bring some peace, and find a way to make yourself and the world better in the way that only you can, in the way that only you can, and you're uniquely suited to do it.
The conception of the shadow is to understand the idea of persona. And persona is the you that you present when you want people to accept and like you. Resentment is a really good emotion for making contact with the shadow side. It means is that you've got some things to say that you haven't been willing to say or don't know how to say. Right? You can't stand up for yourself properly. And in order to do that, you have to grow some teeth and be willing to use them. And again, that's something that might violate your morality, because you might say, well, I shouldn't be able to bite people. And the thing is, yes, you should be able to bite people hard. And if you're able to bite them, then generally you don't have to. If you run into people who only have boundaries because other people impose them on them and you won't do it, you're going to be the bullied one in the office. People aren't going to credit you with your own work. Other people are going to take credit for it. And you're going to go home angry because you're doing your best and you're trying to get along with everyone and nothing ever goes your way. Well, it's because you're a pushover. And you think that's good because you confuse harmlessness with morality. It's not right. Just because you can't do any damage doesn't mean you're moral. You're dangerous. You can't say no to people, and you'll go along with the crowd. And then if the crowd does something particularly pathological, which it's liable to do, you won't be able to resist it.
Big topics is the way that we've been so divided into groups and thinking about the groups, and how really something I do really definitely see is a big problem is when I see the divisiveness, when I see like MGTOW, that whole thing, and then I see like feminists, and because you see, we can't afford to start separating ourselves based on those kinds of arbitrary divisions. We can't say, all men or all women are bad, or all, we can't do that. We have real enemies out there. We have real problems. We have real problems where there's, the thing that we're fighting against here is, narcissistic abuse. We're fighting against psychological harm and, emotional terrorism. That's the enemy. And shapes and sizes, all, both genders, all ages, all races, all languages, It doesn't care about any of that. And so we shouldn't either. We should care about, separating from the bad guy, not separating from just any guy or any girl, and making each other enemies, and dividing down gender lines and making each other an enemy is, it's an old idea, and it didn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Because at the end of the day, we need each other. At the end of the day, we need each other. At the end of the day, we're the perfect complement to one another. We need one another. We're a complement to one another. What we don't need is the pathologically narcissistic. We don't need people who are twisting our values and poisoning our next generation and all that stuff. And values have really taken a big hit. The values of integrity and justice and loyalty and all of that. There is just none of that in a narcissistic world. In a narcissistic world, there's just none of that. And what I was noticing when I was down in Mexico was that the whole Day of the Dead ceremony, all of that was just not a narcissistic thing. It was like that was all about community. It was all about honoring other people. It was all about it was community and other centered. It was absolutely not narcissistic, and that's why you can deal with things like the death of a child in a place like that. Losing a child obviously is really, really difficult, but to lose a child when you have a narcissistic family and a narcissistic community, and when the father of that child is a sociopath, that's a lot. That's really a lot. The point of us being here and getting all these, different people to subscribe to our channels and all that stuff. And I think about this all the time, because I think about, what's the message that I want to be putting out there, and is that resonating with people? It really has been, this channel and all of you have been such an important part of my being able to cope with what's happened in my life. I really value all of you, and I value your time, and I value, I feel really honored that whenever you guys tune in to my channel and watch me, I feel really honored that you've given me that time. I don't feel at all entitled to that time. I feel like what a gift that you tuned in here and you gave me the gift of your time and your attention. And so I never want to waste that. I really want to make it worth your while. And I'm so open to having you tell me how I can best do that.